Curious Owl here, and today I am here with my June wrap-up. So June was very, very crazy for me because, as you guys know, I've been starting up with babysitting full-time, and basically it started about the second or so week of June, and it's just been really crazy. So my reading schedule has been a little off because of it, but I ended up participating in one readathon very spontaneously, and then have started another readathon as of the 29th. The one that I decided to do spontaneously was Cramathon, and actually pretty much all of the books that I had set for my TBR this month fit into it, except for one, but that's because I finished it very early on in the month, and then I even was able to add a couple of books to it. So in total this month, I finished 8 books, which I was really, really proud of myself. One of them, like I said, I finished very early on in the month, and then the rest I finished either during Cramathon or just after, and at the end of the month I started getting into Tome Topple. So I do have a separate TBR for Tome Topple, as it is going from the end of June into the first couple of weeks of July. So if you would like to go check out the books that I am reading in that, please feel free to. These will not be counted in the page numbers and stuff like that for June, because honestly I didn't even start them until today, really. In the month of June, like I said, I read 8 books. I listened to 3 audiobooks, read 2 ebooks, and read a total of 3 physical books. According to my pages read sheet in my bullet journal for June, I read a total of 1,861 physical pages, either through ebook or physical books, and I listened to about 34 hours and 15 minutes worth of audiobooks this month. Starting off with the month, at the very beginning, I ended up reading the novella Dream Dark by Kayla Garcia and Margaret Stohl. This is essentially kind of a filler book between books 2 and 3 of the Beautiful Creature series, as it deals with one of the secondary characters, Link, after he is turned into an incubus. Overall, I really liked Dream Dark. It was very short. It was about 35 pages or so, and it really didn't bring a lot of plot to the story, but it kind of started to get into an idea of looking at the story through Link's perspective, which was really cool. I ended up giving it, I think, about 4.5 stars, because I really wish that the story would have been actually from Link's perspective, but the writing of it actually seemed to have been as if Link had told Ethan and Lena and then they retold the story. I would have liked it just completely from Link's perspective, so it was that I kind of marked some points down for that, but overall was really interesting and with some really nice filler material between books 2 and 3. Then I finished the audiobook for The Diviners by Libba Bray, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars to. I fell in love with this book so much from the very beginning of it in May, and I just could not stop listening to it because it was so gory and it was so weird and strange, and there were all these really strange things dealing with the occult that were involved, and it made me actually want to start doing some more research into the occult, because I am very interested in that kind of dark material. But this book, I think, if you're looking to get into some kind of horror paranormal stories in YA, this is the perfect book to start with, because it delves so far into it, and there's so many things that it talks about and it references that is so different, and it's placed in the 1920s, and it has such a great feel for it. January Lavoie as a narrator too was absolutely wonderful, because she did so many great voices for every single character that was distinct to their personality and to their dialogue, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was absolutely amazing. Then, starting with Cramathon, I ended up finishing The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey, the first book in the Fifth Wave series, and this was very, very underwhelming for me. I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. Overall, I really enjoyed the plot, and I really enjoyed kind of the different things that were going on with it, but there were way too many perspectives that played into the story, and I think it could have been narrowed down to at most 3 characters, being Cassie, Ben, and Cassie's younger brother Sam, but it was a little too much with all the different perspectives, and there was an insta-love relationship that made itself aware in the story, but was still really, really questionable, and the male part of the relationship was very shady, and the female part of the relationship knew that something was up, but she continued to be with the person anyway, and I was really not a fan of it. I really did not like this relationship at all, even if the male in the relationship did redeem himself in the end. I just didn't like it. I thought that the relationship was absolutely unnecessary, and it could have been just a friendship. Leaving it at that, I think that making it into a romantic relationship was overkill for this book. The second book that I finished during the Cramathon was Flame in the Mist by Renee Ahdieh. Again, a very underwhelming book for the expectations that I had involved with it. There is a sequel that has just come out for this book called Smoke in the Sun, which I am interested in reading. As overall, again, just like the Fifth Wave, I really liked the plot and the kind of things that were involved with it. This is very much a kind of Mulan-esque kind of story because this deals with a girl who, essentially her caravan is attacked by what she thinks is the Black Clan, who are trying to overthrow the Empire, and as she is supposed to be marrying one of the Emperor's sons, they attack her and they try to kill her. And once she survives, she decides to disguise herself as a male and infiltrate the Black Clan to find out who tried to kill her and why. And things kind of go topsy-turvy when she starts getting involved with the Black Clan. This I thought had some really great potential, being that it was kind of placed in a more ancient Japanese setting and dealt a lot with samurais and a lot of Buddhist qualities, but I felt that for one, the writing style was really bland for the kind of story it was, and I did not really get many fantastical elements that it was supposed to have. It honestly felt more like a historical fiction story than a more high fantasy as it has been portrayed to be. And overall, I was just very underwhelmed. I think that I went into this with too high expectations, and I was really, really let down by it. But I am interested to see kind of how the second story goes, as this kind of ends on a really interesting note with the politics involved with it, that I'm interested in seeing kind of how it plays out furthermore into the second book. The last book I ended up finishing in Cramathon was the audiobook for Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. Oh my gosh, I really could not believe how amazing this book was. I did end up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars because there were some problems I had with the overall story that I was not particularly a fan of. The ending specifically really let me down in terms of what I was expecting the ending to be. But overall, this was a wonderful, wonderful mystery story that dealt with lies and deceit and all kinds of ideas. And this is a story where, like, going into it, you cannot put any idea of guilt or who's guilty or innocent right away, because there's so many layers that are involved with the story that it's like you're digging through things and you're trying to reach a bottom, but there just seems to be more and more things that you have to try to dive through. Then I ended up finishing the ebook for A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir, the second book in the Ember and the Ashes series, and this I gave a 5 out of 5 stars to because from beginning to end, I was going through this book so quickly, and I was feeling so many great things, and at the end of it, I was bawling my eyes out because of things that were really good and things that were really bad. And Sabaa Tahir has just a great writing style and a great way to really get the reader attached to both of the main characters. And what was really cool was that this one, compared to An Ember in the Ashes, had 3 perspectives that all really worked together, because you had Elias and Laia from the first book, but then you also had Helene, that was incorporated in this novel, which I really enjoyed the perspective we saw from her, because it let us in a lot more on some of the politics that were involved in the story and kind of the problems that she has to work through because she is Elias's best friend and she has to go after him as she is a blood strike and he is a fugitive. This is my favorite out of the 2 so far, and as soon as I finished the book, I went and got a physical copy of it as well as a copy of A Reaper at the Gates so that I can read it as soon as possible. The last audiobook I finished for the month was for We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. This is an LGBTQ own voices as well as grief own voices novel dealing with a girl who basically is kind of going through the aftermath of her grandfather's passing and dealing with a lot of the emotional implications that come from it, as well as the relationship problems with her best friend that kind of comes from it as well. The thing about this novel that I decided was that this is a novel that a lot of people think is an LGBTQ book solely and has nothing more than that, but I think that what I've learned from this book is that you couldn't go into it just with that mindset. It has an LGBTQ relationship that is a huge part of the story, but a bigger part of the story is really about Marin and her grieving process of losing her grandfather and learning a lot about kind of the relationship they had and the things that he was keeping from her that really upset her, and basically leading up to why she runs away from home to go to New York earlier than expected when she is getting ready to leave for college and things of that nature. And there's so much more that's involved in it than I think just the LGBTQ romance that I really loved by itself, but I think I loved it more that it wasn't a huge forefront of the story. Like, it was kind of more set back. It was a huge part of the story, but there was more to the story than just the relationship. And I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars when at first I didn't think I was going to, but I really loved the way that the story wrapped up. I really loved how I was able to sit back after listening to the book in its totality and really kind of just absorbing the material that I had and really feeling like I understood this story so well by not only being on the spectrum myself, but also having dealt with losing someone in a very sudden fashion as Marin did, as I had lost my own grandfather when I was 13, and it was very sudden. And I just really loved how I was so easily connected to the story, and I just ended up loving how the ending was, because I felt like it truly brought a good light to, you know, the idea of grief. It kind of brought this light at the end of the tunnel idea that a lot of people don't see when it comes to grief. And finally, the last book I ended up finishing right before the beginning of Tone Topple was Beautiful Chaos by Kramer Garcia and Margaret Stohl, the third book in the Beautiful Creatures series, and I ended up giving this 5 out of 5 stars. I think at this point, before reading the last book in the main series of Beautiful Creatures, that this is the favorite as of now. I think that with all of the emotions that I felt reading through this book for the first time in 6 years, it really brought a testament to how much I love this book, because I felt all of the same emotions that I did when I first read the book so many years ago, and I think that if a book can do that after a long time between readings, I think that that really says something about this book. And I loved how it wasn't really dulled at all by all of the chaos that was involved with it. There were so many things that were kind of involved with, you know, trying to fix things in this world and the problems that were coming around because of the things that happened in the second book. And it was just a really awesome kind of continuation of the story, and it really does set up how the final book is going to be. And the ending, oh my god, I'm going to admit I cried so much again at this ending, because I didn't exactly forget what happened, but I forgot just how hard it was to read the end of this book, because it was so emotional and so heartbreaking to read. So there you guys go. Those are all the books that I ended up reading in June. If you would like my more in-depth thoughts of them, you can go ahead and check out all the links down in the description for all of the reviews, as I think spilled my thoughts well on all of these books and their different aspects that I wanted to focus on. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owl at Narflock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys!